Ag Bioscience, the #1 ag tech podcast globally, is now available on video. Hear from leaders and innovators across food, animal health, plant science, ag tech, and agriculture. Mondays at 6 a.m. on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, subscribe and leave us a review. It's the Ag Bioscience Podcast with Agronovis Indiana. Get more information at agronovisindiana.com.
This is Inside Indiana Business Radio on demand for Monday, August 24th, 2026. I'm Gary Dick. With storm damages likely to run into the billions of dollars, Governor Mike Braun says the state has submitted a formal request for expedited major disaster aid to the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Appearing this weekend on Inside Indiana Business Television, the governor had a message for NIPSCO as some residents in northwest Indiana remain without power some 2 weeks after the weather event.
I think NIPSCO needs to pick up the pace because we've given them National Guard help, all of our agencies. They need to call on maybe other utilities. That's a long time in the middle of summer.
Meantime, the Chicago Bears this weekend announced a $100,000 donation to Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Gary to support recovery efforts from severe storms. The team is currently evaluating sites in Hammond for its new stadium. Eli Lilly and Company and one of its Gateway Labs partners have entered into a strategic research collaboration and licensing agreement aimed at developing and discovering RNA-based vaccines for infectious diseases. Lilly plans to work with Boston-based Amplitude Therapeutics to develop vaccine candidates using Amplitude technology. The state of Indiana and former Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission Chair Andy Zay have reached a settlement over a lawsuit that Zay filed after he was fired from the position earlier this month. The settlement deal was mutually agreeable, according to a news release from the governor's office. You're listening to Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media Podcast Network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise at ibj.com to learn more.
A British company, BioCoat, is suing Lafayette's BioBond adhesives for trademark infringement and breach of contract over the U.S. firm's BioCoat product.
The plaintiff fears that the BioBond product name will cause confusion and reputation damage for it in the United States, where it sells a product under the BioCoat trademark, according to a complaint filed last week in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Indiana. The British company licenses its antimicrobial technology to companies who can then use it in their own products, provided they cite the use of BioCoat technology. It's a substance that creates an antimicrobial coating to prevent cross-infection. BioCoat says BioBond, a plant-based adhesive manufacturer and customer, violated a brand agreement by using its technology to create its own BioCoat, a new line of antimicrobial coating products, according to the complaint. The product's name is similar to the British company's name but has a different spelling. The U.S. company later agreed to drop the BioCoat product name and withdraw its trademark applications after several discussions, according to the lawsuit, but the company also notes that BioCoat learned later on that BioBond was continuing to pursue the trademark in violation of the brand agreement. BioCoat is seeking a jury trial and hopes the court issues a preliminary injunction that will stop BioBrand's alleged misconduct. It also asks that BioBond be ordered to destroy all materials bearing the BioCoat name and that its trademark application be canceled. Alex Braun, Inside Indiana Business Radio.
The Robert and Ellen Hahn Museum of Indiana Art in Lafayette has received a $255,000 federal grant to strengthen collection care, hire new staff, and develop artificial intelligence-assisted cataloging tools. The 3-year Museums Empowered grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services will fund a project focused on bringing the Lafayette Museum's nearly 3,500 object permanent collection up to professional standards. This is Gary Dick for Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand.